Hi beauties, it's Brittany and welcome to my channel, Beautiful Brittany. So the last video I posted, I believe was like going over how I had ADHD and how I wanted to kind of start talking about things like that. So I wanted to, I guess, give more of an introduction to the way my channel is going or the way I plan it to go. I don't even know if it's counterproductive to do it, or it kind of seems like it might be counterproductive because I'm in a weird transitional space right now and I'm not exactly sure what I want to do. I don't know if you should be saying that or not. I don't know if I should like honestly say that, but I'm not sure exactly where this journey will take me. I'm on a whole new journey, and me being the overthinker that I am, kind of just feel like I need to kind of explain and set my channel up for the new niche that it's going into, or just maybe explain that it's going to be a little more of something different. So with that being said, I guess I'll go into explaining where I'm at now, my thoughts and everything. I have no idea what this video is going to be titled, but I kind of feel like I just need to press play and record, and then it'll come out. So that's my thought around that. So I can't even say right now, if you like videos like this, then subscribe, because we don't know what this video is going to be. It's probably going to be a long rant. I guess I can give like a little update of where I'm at. I recently quit my job. So I think I'm going to do a video of that and my beliefs on that and why that happened. I already expressed I have ADHD. It had a lot to do with my struggles with ADHD and where I'm at now in my life. That has been a real transition for me. I feel like over these past few years, I've learned so much. I've done so much. I've like grown. I've transitioned. And getting my ADHD diagnosis over a year ago, a little over a year ago now, has been a whirlwind of emotions, of awareness. It has just been a whole lot. I want to say like I'm grateful and like bitter for these past few years, but I feel like I'll be really, really grateful for them in the future. But right now, I feel like I'm still going through them. And gosh, like, just a whole lot of nonsense. So what do I want you guys to know? So I'll give a little bit of my background and my history with ADHD and how I ended up where I'm at right now, how I ended up coming to the point where I decided to quit my job and then turn my YouTube channel into a channel specifically discussing ADHD, in and around ADHD. So as far as the channel goes, my first thoughts was I was always into plus size modeling. I've done it professionally. I've done it non-professionally in a freelance modeling. I never was very successful at it. I was never very consistent. I always did it very inconsistently, as I'm an inconsistent person with ADHD. So when YouTube came out, I was like, yeah, but I didn't really know what I would do, how that would fit into my modeling career. I didn't really want to like a vlog. Funny thing is, like, my life's changed so much. So when I first started thinking about YouTube and what I wanted to do, I knew I thought I wanted to do it, but I thought I wanted to do it for totally different niches because I was in a totally different place 3-4 years ago. So I'll wrap it up and say like 5 years ago, and I'll like kind of go down the timeline. But let's just say 5 years ago, between 2 and 5 years ago, I was somewhere completely different. First of all, I was living somewhere different. Um, I was probably, I was probably in school, getting my bachelor's in psychology at that time, working part time, and maintaining. I I can probably say that I was out, I was about, I was having fun. I was in school. I also have a daughter. Um, my life was probably spinning out of control at that point, at that time in my life. Now that I look back on it, I was going through a whole lot of stuff, and the things I can probably speak about later on down the road if you guys care and want me to share. And I want to be open. I'm a very, very, very transparent person, but I feel like it's. I'm saying that because I feel like, for lack of a better word or term, words, society has beaten me down to like lessen who I am. So what I used to be, I'm, like traits, characteristics, personalities that I used to have, I don't really have anymore. And so when I say like, oh, I'm usually like this, but I'm not, I feel like I'm letting you know who I was, but I don't know why I feel like I need to do that. But I'm a very transparent person. I don't know why I said all of that. However, like, I've learned to realize you don't always need to give everybody everything in the beginning. I want you guys to get to know me for who I am now, and then I don't mind going into my past. Let's just sum it up and say all of that. So anyway, I was going through a rough time. I'm a parent. I live in a town that's away from my parents. They lived like 30 minutes away from me, so everything I was doing was pretty much on my own. Also, I'm a grown ass adult, y'all. I'm not in my 20s. I don't know if I want to lie about my age or not, but I'm not in my 20s. I'm not 20. Jax is down. My dog is down here looking at me. We're in this together, clearly. But yeah, so I talked to my mom. I was like, Mom, I think I should move back. She was like, yeah, you should probably move back home. And that's what I did. Me and my grown ass and my daughter moved back to my mom's house. And the plan was to finish my degree, obviously save money, because I was having financial issues at the time. I was just at a bad place, and it was just like, okay, come home. So that's what I did. At the time, let me see, COVID happened. So my daughter's now in school now. Up here in this area, my mother and my father, they are not together, but they live in the same area. So I'm closer now to both of them. I'm staying with my mom in a room. So me and my daughter are sharing the room. No, actually, she her own like nook. It used to be my stepdad's lying den, but at the time they actually just had finished divorcing and everything. So it kind of turned into her room corner. But it was like a situation, like a lion's den, y'all know. It was like, it wasn't actually like full room. At the time, my daughter is like 6, 7, so it's all good. She's getting older. We were only there for like a year, maybe a little more than a year. I remember it being a year, but my daughter said it was more than a year. I don't remember, but she's 15 now, so. And I'm bad with the time. I am bad with years, months, so if you really want a timeline, if y'all those type of people, then listen to the ages and stuff, and you all do the math, because I'll tell you something was 2021 and it was 2008. Not because of math though, because of my memory, and it don't matter. Well, y'all can tell I have ADHD, right? because this video is a mess. And I hope y'all can hear me. I hope I'm projecting my voice because I tend to go low and high and low and high. And say a lot, and I hate that as well, but I just need to say this. The reason why it's hard for me to do videos, right? The reason why I procrastinate so much is because it is, I think in such a big perspective. I think about everything all at once. So it's hard for me to stick it to one topic. It is so hard. And with that being said, I'm like, I don't know how to make a video on this one thing because everything in my life, everything that's wrong is going to come out right here in this one video. And then I'm like, if I do that now, then how can I talk about other things later? But obviously I can't say everything in one video. I'm talking it out now, right, while I'm with y'all. So then I should probably just keep on recording. And then, you know, if somebody likes it eventually when I start doing more videos, because I understand I have 2 subscribers now, then I could do like a more in-depth topic about it later. But yeah, something might come out, you know. So I worry, but that's like, so that's stopping me. That's stopping me from like recording because I feel like every time I try to go and organize it in my head, I get off topic somewhere or I start thinking about something else. And then I'm like, I can't focus on this one thing and I'm stuck here. And so I can't even pre-plan or write down notes. I grabbed my notebook and wrote down, oh, clothes my daughter needed. It had nothing to do with this video. Where was I at? Yeah, I don't know why I'm going down the timeline of my life in 5 years ago. I guess just trying to get you guys an idea of what led me up to where I'm at now with my ADHD journey. So I'm going to try to stick it to that and not give you my whole life and everything else. But you guys will probably hear some things. And if you're interested to know more about that and my thought process or why I did whatever I did, if you want to know more about anything or how I did certain things, then just comment down below. I don't know that this is going to get juicy, but I done been through some shit. Some shit. Yeah. So I was at my mom's for about a year. Still was not mentally in a good place, but at the time I don't know this, right? So, and then let me just also say, like, at the time I didn't know I'm in a bad place. Obviously, like, I'm like, I need to go. I'm gonna get evicted from my apartment. Like, it was getting that bad. But I'm not thinking mentally I'm in a bad place. I'm not thinking like this is about to be the start of my chapter, that whole 5-year chapter of now. I'm not thinking that at the time. I'm thinking like, how can I be so stupid? Why am I moving back to my mom's house? What is wrong with me? And then of course, after the pity party, it was like, okay, let's make a plan. This is what it is. You're going to save money. You're going to go back to school. You're going to go full time. You're good. You know the school district. My daughter knows, like, my daughter, I grew up in the town that I'm at now, where my mom lived at. So, like, that was all, like, I was cool with that, but I just really felt bad that I was moving. I'm a mom, and I'm moving, and my daughter is in elementary school. It's funny because in psychology, they say kids are really, really adaptable to change between the ages of, like, 7 and 9. It's when they get into that, like, after 11, where it's really hard for them to do change. They don't like it, and that's when they're like, no, I don't. And it's so funny because when I said I was moving, then my daughter's like, oh, okay, we're going to stay with my mom. Cool. Now, when I be like, Sev, like, I just, like, will ask her sometimes, like, hey, what do you think about moving? She's like, Mom, I want to finish high school. Don't, like, no. And I'm like, dang, how can you put that pressure? Like, you know, but it's just so funny that I read that in developmental psychology class, we were learning about that. And I just think it's so interesting how, like, as kids get older, developmental stages just show. But yeah, teenagers, good luck with that. But long story short, I met a guy. My last and final bum. I shouldn't say that, but that's what it is. At this point, I didn't know. I should have known, but at the time, I think it was another good, thinking back on it, it was a good thing I met this person because it gave me the push I needed to catapult where I'm at now. And it gave me like, what the F are you doing? I and again, I didn't know this was related to my ADHD at all. So at the time, I don't know how to ADHD. And I'm gonna speak on it because, like I told you, I've always had ADHD, but didn't know I had ADHD, but knew I had ADHD, but found out I really have ADHD. It's the whole thing. So yeah, started talking to this guy. I think at the time, it was a distraction. I think it felt good to put myself into somebody else. Now I think about it, than myself. It was more like a project, and I didn't think of it like that. Like I wasn't trying to fix him or anything, but I was like, okay, we can make this thing work. This thing could work. I knew going into it, he had some issues that he had to work out, and like the way I sum up the relationship is I really overestimated my ability and patience to deal with a whole nother human being. Like I would never go into another relationship thinking like, oh yeah, I could do this. Like, and that's why I sum it up to say he was immature, but I had some issue with me too because I knew, like, I can never say I didn't know what it was when I got into it. It ended up being a whole lot of other stuff and a whole lot of this and a whole lot of that, but still, I shouldn't have gotten that relationship. Like, he was way too young, and not age-wise, but like mentally, he was just way too young for where I was at now. But it was a fun little distraction. Y'all know the little fun, little funny boys, you know. I don't mean funny like that, but I mean like, y'all know what I mean. Somebody that's fun, you know, that's around, they always available. I think that's what it was. I think at the time I was very vulnerable. I think I was very lonely. I'm back at my mom's house. I'm not feeling good about myself at all, and I think I really just needed someone to give me some attention, and it was the attention. My mom called it my "tell me more about my eyes" phase. Like, oh, you just tell me more about my eyes. I don't know, was that from Popeye somewhere? Betty Boop? I don't know. She said something. One of them shows. It wasn't in my generation, wasn't in my childhood, but she was like, you know, the person was just like, tell me more about, like, just love the infatuation. And he was infatuated with me, and I love that. And it got old after a while. It got old. I realized that it's not what I wanted. I realized that I wanted way more. I realized we weren't on the same level. We weren't on the same playing field. Like, we just wanted two totally different things. Where I was at and ready to go, he was not there yet, and it didn't seem like he wanted to be that. And I also didn't want to push him to be something that he didn't want to be. But as I look back on it and like did shadow work and been very self-aware, I realized that person, let's call him John. If y'all ever seen, it don't matter. I'm gonna get off on another tangent. John, I always had a John. Like, I always dated Johns. And I realized that it's related to my ADHD, and I just had to do a lot of self-reflection. So I was in that relationship for 2-3 years. That relationship, because of COVID, had us very much so close together very quickly. And then we decided to get an apartment together. Sorry, I definitely just stuttered. We decided to get an apartment together. Whip-de-doo, like, who didn't see that coming? You know, and then obviously school is not the priority anymore, but COVID happened, so everything was shut down. And I think that at this time it was like, well, what else is there to do? Now, that's not how I felt at the time. Like, that's not how I felt at the time. I was very much so in love with this person at the time. Like, I wanted everything to work. I thought it was good. But just like looking back on decisions and stuff I make, you know, you look back and you realize, like, well, what was I trying to do with, like, because what was that? Yeah, and at this time too, right around the time, I think before I was moving, I got into like a big argument with my family, not my immediate family, like not my mom, and my dad or anything, but like her relatives, that her family, and I stopped talking to them. So like all my cousins and families and friends too, like we just kind of stopped talking, and I could do another video on that, like toxic friends and families and all that, but I had gotten into a thing with them and we had started talking too. So I'm really not talking to anybody at this time too. And of course I'm by myself, so I got my head down. I mean, like, I'm at my mom's, so I got my head down. I ain't trying to really be in nobody's face anyway. I'm trying to, you know, I don't want nobody I ain't trying to make no waves. I don't want nobody to know that I'm back in town. Like, I'm upset and I'm embarrassed. Yeah. So anyway, I was going through a whole lot of stuff. I went away for a couple weeks. I had to like clear my mind. Yeah. When I get back is when I met the dude. And now we're staying at my mom's for a couple months. COVID happened, so everything is shut down. Nobody's working. Nobody's going to school. The school shut down. And I actually was able to work. So was a first responder. I'm a behavioral health aide. I did in-home nursing. Me and my client was really, really cool. I took care of a little boy with autism, and his mom would drop him off to me, or I would go up there. So we was just chilling all COVID, all quarantine. We was just, we was just doing our thing most of the time. I was barely with him, but still getting paid as a first responder. So money was cool, and then the checks and everything was coming in. And then he had a money situation, a financial situation that was going to bring some money in. So we were trying to figure out how all that was going to work, and then we were looking for an apartment, which was very hard to find during COVID. So it was kind of like picking the ones that was the closest, the one that was the most convenient to my mom and everything. And that's how I ended up coming back to town, because I never wanted to live back in town. I went to high school out here. For some reason, I just did not. I moved out to get away from the town culture. I just didn't like it. I just wanted to be out of it, right? I was not too far away where I moved, but I feel like that was the furthest and closest I could get to be away, but not be too far away. And that's where I went. So long story short, I end up getting it together. The quarantine is lifted. Now we're 2 years in. So me and him been together for 2 years. Everything is going good with my daughter. We're living here now. The apartment is nice. Now, the quarantine is lifted, and I'm starting to see, like, okay, this is not who I really want to be with. This is not really working out. It's starting to be too hard. I always feel like relationships should not be hard. If it's not, like, obviously you have ups and downs, but it should not be hard for me to love you, or for me to feel loved. It should not feel like that. It should not be. I should not be second guessing if you got my back or not. You understand? Like, it shouldn't be like that. It was never cheating. I never dealt with cheating. So it was like I said. If I just sum it up to, he was immature and I'm impatient. Like, let's just sum that whole thing up today. I knew it was going to be a while for me to be able to, like, it was the first time I actually had to think about just breaking up. Like, it couldn't just be a breakup, because now we're in this apartment together, right? And the majority of the money was coming from him and his financial situation. He wasn't working, but he had a good financial situation. And I'm like, okay. In the apartment turned into me helping him out. That was how it was supposed to be. He didn't have pay stubs, but he had wasn't a drug dealer. He had a financial situation, right? That, so I was going to just get an apartment for him and let him stay here. But when we were looking for apartments, now we're dating, obviously we're getting closer, and he's like, you might as well stay with me. And I'm like, well, let's get a 2-bedroom so I can start spending the night and I could be over here, yada, yada, yada. But I kept saying, like, I don't really want to stay there. I don't really want to live with you. Girl, I was out. First of all, I'm not about to stay in mom's in no room. And then the 2-bedroom, for some reason, was cheaper than the 1-bedroom. And I'm like, okay, well, my daughter can have her own room. And like, I was out. Deuces, mom. I'm out. Like, whatever this is, it's a thing now. I'm out. Yeah. So that's how that went. So towards the end, when I started to realize, like, okay, he had to go, I'm like planning, like, how am I going to do this? He got to go. I'm too far removed from school. I wanted to go back to school. No, I tried to go back to school, and then I realized that I ain't had no more money to go back to school. First of all, I never paid for school. I used to take financial aid. I used to have financial aid and or take out a loan. Like, I don't have serious high student loans. I don't know. Maybe I kind of do, but I wasn't going to take out a private loan. At that time, I was worried about my credit situation like that. And I was cleaning up my credit at my mom's. I don't know if I mentioned it. And like I said, I was working. We were getting the stimulus, not the PPP, but the PUA, unemployment, all that, all that good stuff. So money was good at this time. Didn't do nothing but spending on nonsense. But money was really good. And I end up going into this training and employment. I don't know what you guys call it. I don't know where you guys are, but anyway, it's like a training and employment center where you go. You could do resumes. They have job fairs. You know, you could take trainings. You could take Microsoft Office words, things like that. I used to go in there all the time to fix my resume or to go in there and look for any jobs that were hiring at the time. But they always had more like retail customer service, fast food positions, cashier, and I was not touching any of that stuff anymore. I was always into anything in the healthcare, not healthcare, but like I've done behavioral health thing, home nurse thing, office assistant work. I was in school for psychology and I wanted to do case management. So now, at this time now, I'm looking for case manager jobs. I've done an internship and got hired out of that for my I did an internship and got hired out of that after I got my associates and before I transferred to get my bachelor's. So I'm now like all into case management. Obviously, I'm still doing the home nurse on the side because I'm always like got a good client that I never really had to work. And this is the information you guys got to pull from this story because that's relating to my ADHD. I never worked full time. If you could tell like this whole story, like I never worked full time. So I always worked it out where I was able to, people always ask me how I did this, but I don't know how to explain it. Very easily. I was always able to maintain my rent and everything with like school. School to me was like the best thing that happened. Like, oh, I wanted to go to school anyway. So I think I have to say like that's a big part of it. Like if you were thinking about school or you wasn't sure college, but like financial aid loans you do have to pay back. But I would pay my rent down for 5-6 months off my school checks, my loans. Half the time I didn't really have to take out loans. There's like so many scholarships and things that like you qualify for, but after like it usually goes like the 2 to 3 years. So after I finished my 2 years, the stuff started to run out, and I really didn't realize that ADHD, right? I forgot that like, oh, I can't do work study and I can't apply it if I'm not in school anymore. And once I graduated, I was in that loop, right? I left my job. This old ever story. I left my job, and that's how I end up the trickle effect of me getting evicted and everything from the first apartment, from that one bedroom I was in, and that had trickled why I ended up going back to my mom's and why I was going, in that zone and how I met Doofus and how I met, and then how I ended up getting here to this apartment. So I barely ever worked. I always had a client that was cool, that would be cool, but like, let me sign your papers and you could go home early. And, I never really was in an office anywhere working or having to give up my time or do hard labor for money. I never was into that. I always found a way around that, always found a way to get like large lump sums of money, whether it was like programs that I would apply for that would give you like rental assistance or programs that would give you money. I guess I always felt really good ways to capitalize off of that. As far as like my rent and stuff, like I would just use it to pay my rent so then I could be free for some months. Like, oh, okay, let me have all this. Let me throw it on my rent, pay my car insurance for 6 months. You could figure out phone bill and food anywhere. So I was able to travel with like, I don't know. I don't know if it was my priorities, but I always, I guess, had luck in that department. So that's how I did it. I never worked into my 20s, 30s at a full-time job. So fast forward to today, not 2 years ago, it's like 2.5 years ago, we broke up. I finally was able to be like, okay, you gotta go. I got myself together. So I had a plan because he was immature. Like I say, he wasn't going to leave easily. He was not going to leave easily. And if y'all want a whole video about him and that whole mess, I could talk about it. But so I had to come up with a plan. I said that I'm gonna save some money. I had a conversation with my daughter. She's getting older at this time. She's like 13, 14. She's like 13, I think. And I'm like, I'm saving up some money. My plan, I think when I got $10,000, I was gonna leave. Either we was gonna leave or he was gonna have to leave. But the apartment was in my name, so I was, thinking you're definitely going to go. And he eventually did. He did. He left. And so when I was going to training employment centers, I was going there to try to get him a job. Like, he now was like, oh, he was trying to work part-time, and he had a few part-time like gigs in between, like in and out our relationship. And so I was like taking him there to like help him fix his resume and things like that. And then I was always talking to this caseworker, this one of the career coaches there, and she was like, "Oh, you would be really good here. You need to talk to my supervisor." So every now and then I would be like, "Oh, okay." I would check back up and on her, and I was like, "Hey, how's that job?" And at the time I was like, "I don't really want nothing full time. I really, really always wanted to do like the maternity care coalition where when I was pregnant, right? And I got pregnant in high school, and I was in a pregnancy program. I think we called it like the pregnancy class at the high school I went to, but it was a really good program. But from that, they gave me like a nurse that would come out and meet me with the baby and like just teach me things that like a mom should know. And at first I was scared as hell. I always wanted to do a video or just like talk about that, like especially in the Black community, like people coming to the house. We don't do white people coming to the house, stuff like that. So it was a thing, but it actually was really cool, and I always wanted to do that. So I was applying for that job, and the job actually called me back, and I got the job. So at this time too, I'm getting callback jobs for case manager jobs. Like in my eyes, this is like the real professional job. This is the job I went to school with. The reason why I left the job when I had my first apartment after I got my associates is because my supervisor was a bitch. Long story short, and it's obviously from my perspective because I'm the only one here, right? She was just a bitch, and I had this attitude like I'm not dealing with nobody that just got an like I probably was just real bougie at the time. That's why my ass got evicted. But I was just real bougie at the time, and I was like, I don't need to deal with nobody's attitude. And now, like, fast forwarded, like, I would take her over this whole mess that I've been through 10 times over. I would take her. But I was just like, I'm not, like, she got an attitude. Y'all need to deal with that. I shouldn't have to deal with her attitude. I'm out. And not to mention, like, I got really blessed, right? When I got my internship, the lady I was under, she really had me in the field. I worked at I don't even know what you call it. This was my first introduction to human services. Is that what you would call it? Like human resources, human services. I think that's what you would call it. It wasn't like at this time. It was not really in the welfare system, but it was like wrapped up with the welfare system, like providing shelter, providing resources, all of that, right? So this in the town I was at, or in the county, they just had like one big place where you would go to, and you would go there that day, and you would get placed either like in a motel if they didn't have a shelter, or you would get placed in a shelter, and you had to do a drug test. If you were on drugs, you had to go to drug and alcohol. If you was pregnant, you had to go to like a pregnancy program. If you were what else? It was something else. Whatever it was, like they would be like, you gotta go, you gotta do this, and then they would put you in a shelter, and you could go into any shelter program, and if you stayed there for like 6 to 9 months, you could end up getting your own apartment, and they'll pay for it, and they'll put you in like transitional housing, and then they'll actually put you in your own apartment and then pay a percentage of it. They get you a job, they help you with your kids, get you back on your feet. I really love the county I used to work in because they're really good. The county I'm in now, they were family oriented, and that was one thing the supervisor told me. She was like, this county is very family oriented, because I worked in a shelter where they kept the families together, and I didn't realize like this was like a last chance shelter. I didn't realize like the kids were about to be taken from the parents, right, when I first started at the shelter, because they don't tell you this stuff when you're interviewing, right? When I first worked at the shelter, they told me, like, I didn't know that the parents were going to get their kids taken. They have already went to court. They were already deemed, like, CYS was already involved. They already had chances, and they were like, this is the last, you can go to this shelter where you'll be monitored, with you and your kids on how you're doing with the kids. You'll be helped. You'll get parenting class. You'll get this, you'll get services, and they'll get you back on your feet so that you could be sustainable you know, you could be the proper parent to raise your child. That was the point of the shelter that I worked in after getting hired on my internship. But anyway, when I was doing my internship, my supervisors were so good. She had me hands on. Like, I was taking the drug test. I was the worker that was going out to the hotel to do their checks, to do their inspections. I was doing it all. She was like, "Can you do such a like?" I was like, "Yes, yes." Like, she did not have me paper pushing. She did not have me over there in files. I really appreciate that. She had me. Excuse me, my alarm's going off. She had me in the mix, and I loved it. I just I loved the position. I had so much fun doing it. So much fun that I was able to write that 5 to 10 paper. I was just thinking about that because my school now was like, "Oh, you have to write a 5." So now I was like, but I was like, "Brittany, you did this. Why are you tripping? You did this." And I was like, "How? When? Why did I? How? 10? Like, on what? Like, what?" But I be over exaggerating because the way I be talking and thinking, y'all can see now, like, a paper, I could do that in a minute. Like, I just had to do an essay, like 500 essay, and it was a page and a half, and I swear I was only writing for like 5-10 minutes. No, it was longer than that, but still, it didn't feel like it. I was like, oh, I came up with a paper and a half. Like, it seems like a lot, but when I do it, it's like, bro, you just did that. What are you tripping about? But anyway, dang, my ADHD strong today, ain't it? Where was I at? She passed away. My supervisor for my internship, she passed away. And there was other supervisors there that seen my work and everything, and I was talking to, and I was like, is there any positions? I'm graduating, I asked the director, like, is there any positions here in the agency that I could work at? I'll do the intake, I'll do like wherever, like, can I start? And she was like, oh, actually, we're hiring at the shelter. So I never actually was at the shelter before. That, like I said, like, they had so many different programs that we were like the one-stop shop that we would do the first case management and the first intake and then send them out to different places. Like, if they were in like a waiting zone, and that's when you would case manage that from like where you were at. So that's what I was doing for my internship, but then they actually hired me in a shelter where we would send some of the families. So when I got there, the supervisor, she was like, this is like a relationship, right? Like, we need to get, like, I had my own office, right, at first, and the paperwork was not hard, but like my job now, I was just like, oh, okay. Like, I was still doing more hands-on. I was still doing checks. I was doing what do you call it? Inspections. I was still doing apartment inspection. Like, these ones, they had 12 families that would live in the house, in the shelter that I worked at, and I would do checks to those rooms. But then they also had transitional houses where they would move them out to like their own apartment, but it was owned by the government, the company, state, whatever, right? It was owned by them, and they had like to pay like a small amount per month. It was transitional. I really liked that because then after that, then they got their own apartment. Like, I was like, oh, like, all these services, and y'all know me, like, I'm an eye for services, like, I'm an eye for and the way I knew the company is because the first time I was about to get evicted, I had applied there, and got some assistance with my rent, and I don't know who told me about it, but it was really cool. So I was like, oh, okay, y'all do this. Like, now I'm learning about services, I'm learning about welfare, I'm learning about like all the programs and things you could get like from going to school. Like, just because I was a student, like, I'm starting to hear like all these programs and all this stuff that's available, and I'm just like, oh, why people are not taking advantage of this? So this is where now I'm starting to build. I'm starting to learn and build a life for myself at this point. But I messed up where I messed up at. So yeah, I the supervisor, she started just like saying I was doing stuff that I didn't do, like, but make something up. Like, she was like, oh, you lost such and such file. Can you go find it? And I'm like, I never had the file, but I'll go find it. And they couldn't find the file. Oh, well, you lost. I'm like, no, I didn't. And then I got into an accident. I was driving down the street and I sideswiped somebody's car, right? And they had me driving this big ass van, and I never drove a big ass van before. And I told her, like, I'm a little uncomfortable with the van, but the van was all they had, and I had to drive them. And I was like, y'all didn't say nothing about me having to drive in an interview, but okay. I was actually like happy to get out. Like, I didn't have to sit in the house all day, like, and just talk to them. Like, I would take them to their appointments. I would, like, act as like an advocate or liaison. Like if they need to go to the welfare building, I would accompany them, help them fill out their paperwork. If they need to talk to like a caseworker there, me and them would correspond. If they needed to do fines, I would be driving them all the way to Philly to do like to get their social security cards, to pay any fines and all that off, the birth certificates, all that. And they need to go to PennDOT. I would help them fill out the application, you know, make phone calls, and actually take them there too. So, yeah, I was driving a van one time. There was like a school bus and another car parked, and I thought I could make it. I got all nervous and panicked, and I ended up hitting the thing. So, I left a note on the car. There was nobody out there. There was like a barbershop across the street. Nobody was looking. First of all, yo, I was in Chester too. Like, I'm not staying. No. So, but at the time I didn't even think so. I was like, okay, ain't nobody out here. I'm looking around. I left a note. I knew to do that. Like, I'm in a company vehicle. I'm pretty sure like there's insurance. I, left a note, and I told her, I was like, hey, I swiped my car. I did leave a phone number or whatever. And then she was like, oh, okay. I said, like, what's the protocol? Like, what do we do? And she was like, I'll let you know. I'll ask HR or whatever. So I guess she finally asked HR. She probably did it late or whatever. And then then later on, days later or something, she's all like, oh, you didn't do that right. I'm like, I didn't do what right? And she's like, you were supposed to stay there. You were supposed to take pictures. I was like, of what? The mirror was right. Like, what do you mean? Like, stay on nobody was there for me to stay there for. Like, if the person was there, if it was an accident, it was a parked car. Like, there was no accident. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. Like, you needed to stay with the vehicle. Like, I get insurance purposes, but I'm like, there shouldn't be no liability. I hit his damn car. Like, are you trying to dispute the fact that I didn't hit his car? I don't get it. I hit his car and knocked off the mirror. Send him in a check. So the guy called the office. I left the office number. The guy called the office and, he asked for me, and I was like, yeah, thank you. I apologize for that. I work for this agency. HR is working on how we're going to handle that. And then they did. They wrote a check, and I was like, sir, come pick up your check. And it was all good. But the supervisor was trying to make it a thing and then make it like I did something wrong. And I'm like, ma'am, you didn't give me any proper protocol or any information about what happens if you hit or have an accident in a company, like in the company van. I didn't know. Like, you gave me, first of all, you didn't even ask if I drive. You didn't even ask me for my driver's license, which I did have. If I felt comfortable driving, it was a big rickety chest molester van, like one of them big white church vans. Get up out of here. I don't drive big vehicles. I got an SUV now, which I love, but and I told her I wasn't comfortable driving it. So it used to be like this, shaking. I used to drive down Philly. I used to be so scared, like on the highway, like this big rickety. I just feel like I don't have control. Like, if there's 3 rows behind me, like I cannot drive. Girl, won't even want to tell you about the story when I damn crashed a U-Haul. But I'm getting way off topic. I don't even know if anybody's listening to this. I'm glad that I am just speaking and getting things out of here. But let me take a break, guys. Let me get a drink of water. Scoot it back over. That's how I left that job. After graduating with my associates, I left that job. And I was like, I wanted to do more case management. Like, she started to try to, like, push me papers. Like, she started with the file, and then she started, and then a caseworker left too, a caseworker. And I'm looking, like, asking, like, what degrees they have, what do they do? And I'm like, they do the same thing I did. And mind you, because my supervisor was so good on my internship, and I think I was on my internship for over a year. Like, I think it was only like a semester, but we were able to work it into like work study or something. Like, I think I was there for like a year into my internship. I learned a whole lot. Like, I was doing the damn thing. The paper, like, it was like I caught on real good. Like, I was just doing, and I'm a people person. If I do say so myself, I was just doing the damn thing. The only thing you need to let me know is like the software y'all use, and like I even know, and I don't know why, but I knew like case management, like how to do the DAP. You have to do the DAP format when you're doing case notes, or well, you did in that practice. Did I do that before, or did I learn that there? I can't remember, but anyway, it's just paperwork. But I'm a very proactive person, so I was even able to do like X, Y, and Z. Like, this is BS. This is filler. We need it. Like, I don't know. I was really, and I'm a really am a people person. I started implementing workshops there. Like this one family was really big with hygiene, and they were like, "Oh, why don't you do workshops?" And they're like, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "We're going to do a hygiene workshop, and we're gonna like I would print out things and I create like I like that of it. It was also far. It was like 45 minutes from where I lived at. It took me 45 minutes anyway to get down there. And she was giving me attitude. She was giving me attitude, like just stuff like that. And she started to try to give me more paperwork. And then it was like, oh, can you go downstairs and get this? Or, and I was like, I'm here for the people. Like whenever I'm not with the people, that's when I gotta probably like, you're giving me paperwork. You're giving me busy work to do, and I'm not a secretary. And then she started like, well, you're my assistant because I think my title turned into or was shelter support aide. It was like shelter support aide, right, at the time. So what I would like, so what I was doing, what I was good at, like I was starting to be more like the assistant of it. And I was like, oh, well, what do I have to do to do what you do, to do case management? Because that's what I want to do. And she was like, oh, you need your bachelor's. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going back to get my bachelor's then. So that's what I did. I was like, oh, I'll go get my bachelor's because I'm not doing no paper. Like after I went like, and in my head, right, and obviously now I know like, that like everybody say like the high school diploma is like just going to freaking like middle school and like in your associates like going it's just your high school diploma and the bachelor is just like your associates. Like you need more and more degrees, right? And at the time ADHD, right? I'm not thinking like I know I'm getting my associate like where I'm at with my associates, like what I can get and how much money I can make. So I'm feeling like I just did 2 years of school. I graduated from a college, even though it's community college. I'm like, I'm not. You're trying to pay me what? And you're trying to tell me I can't do, like, what do you mean? Like, I went to school for it. I know my neurons is firing more than your neurons. And I just did all of this and more in my internship for over a year. And now you hiring me to do something less than what I was doing. Like, I just felt like, no. Like, I didn't go to school for 2 years. That's how I felt for you to talk to me like this and for me to be your assistant. That's how I felt. But I probably was, a little bit more on my high horse, but I was just like, no, not doing it. I go, like, if you feel like I need my associates, let me go. I guess we're going back to school. And I was like, I really don't need this because, like, I'm feeling like, first of all, I never had to work this hard. I never had to do a 9 to 5 and be in this darn thing all damn day for, eight hours, Monday through Friday. Because, mind you, I never worked full time before, right? And I just feel like it was a lot out of me. And then at the same time, like, I'm not even doing anything that I like to do no more. I'm doing, like, I'm less with the people. I'm doing less one-on-one. I'm like, and you want me to do more paperwork, and it was just very unsettling with her blaming me for weird stuff that I didn't do and being like I did this or I should have known this when I should have known. It was just like, if you believe that, will you tell the HR that, and then will you fire me? Like that's my worry when people like just like completely say lies. I don't know how to deal with that because my thing is like, if you believe that, then your next step would just be to fire me, right? This is an hour video, and I don't think nobody's going to be watching an hour video. It feels good to me, but I don't know if I don't know if we have anything here. I don't know if I should be posting this. I don't know. This is not what I plan to talk about, but it feels right. Does it feel right to y'all? It feels right to me. Is anybody watching? I don't know. If it is, guys, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button if you're liking things. If you're liking what I'm talking about, if this story relates to you, if I'm talking way too much, if you want me to break anything, if you liked anything that I have been speaking about in this video and you want to hear more about a specific topic or a situation that I spoke about in my life or just anything around ADHD, I don't even know how much I talked about ADHD or related it yet. It's coming, I promise. Comment it down below, please. And if you feel like anybody else can benefit from this whole mess of a rant, please share it, okay? I'm going to try to sum all of this up to I went back to get my bachelor's in psychology, but my ADHD forgot that the reason why I was able to maintain my rent and everything is because I used to get school checks. So I'm like, you want me to do all of that, I can go to school and get money and work less, and I can and get my bachelor's. So that seems like a responsible thing to do, right? So I quit my job, and it wasn't time to start school yet, obviously, right? And I think I found out like I was at my limit. I think at that point I was like at or near my limit, so I could not go to school right away. So then obviously, then I couldn't do work study. Then I couldn't get any refund checks. So then I like, and I didn't think of that like at the time when I quit. So I was like, shit. And like I said, when I pay my rent up for 5 to 6 months, and this is why I'm so anal, like, and so scared of it now, because my apartment had just switched over to some type of new payment system where like this apartment does now. Like it used to be like, okay, your rent is $500, you pay the $500, it's out, right? Now they like, I don't know. But anyway, because I pay my rent for 5 to 6 months, it's not going to say, hey, you're good for 6 months. I'll see you in January. Don't put nothing in here, right? No, it's going to be like, your credit is $7,000 and minus, like, you know what I mean? So anyway, I thought I was paid up until, if I can remember the time frame of time, like December or something, right? And I'm like, okay, when I go back to school in January, or or it might have been my income tax in February, March, I'll get it. But of course, at the time, I'm not thinking like, Brittany, no, even though we could do income tax in January, sometimes you can't, depending on when you get your W-2s and your, my school paper, whatever, you don't get that stuff till, sometimes you can't file till February and March. And at the time, I think they started implementing the income tax credit, but we had to wait an additional like 6 weeks. Girl, so with all that being said, I left the job not thinking about that. Like, okay, I needed to do work study and all of that. I think I could go back to school, but it wasn't, I wasn't gonna be able to take full-time classes, which means I wasn't going to get as much money as I was, or I couldn't, something like that. It was a long time ago. But so not only did I leave the job and I didn't save before I left or think of another one. Now I knew I could go back to my agencies. I was always hooked up with like the home health agencies. And all I have to do is call them and say, hey, send me a client, but picking the right client, the one that ain't gonna get the F on my nerves and all of that was gonna be a little tricky. The one that was closed, I can't remember if my car was cool at the time, but knowing me and ADHD, the car probably was messed up and I was probably down at that time. Probably just I always was like, going through cars, used cars, because I'm broke, right? So, in ADHD, that is why I had to move back to my mom's house. So, that's how I ended up with my ADHD. Played a big thing again at the time. I don't know it, right? But I'm like, so I'm just mad at myself. I'm really down on myself. I'm like, how can I be so stupid? I just feel like a failure. I'm just dumb, right? Because I left the job. So now I'm like, everybody probably think I don't want to work. Like, who are you to leave, like, quit your job? Or they probably think I got fired, whatever. Can't go back to school, so now I'm not in school anymore. I did just graduate though, so yay me. Like, I didn't even take time to like sit in that for a minute. But anyway, yeah, and now I have to move back to my mom's house because I quit my job. I forgot to check on. Oh yeah, so with the rent, I thought I paid it up until December, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be, so when I do my income tax January, I'm gonna get them in February. So by the time they do that, I'm like, now I'm like, it's going to get close. I ain't got no money, right? I should hurry up and get a job. I think I started working part-time. I don't know, but it wasn't going to be enough to pay my rent. And now, mind you, so I'm thinking, okay, in January, I'm like, I'm going to get a notice. Like, I get an eviction notice, but my landlord, she knew at the time, like, I pay my rent down for months. So, like, I'm late. I'm waiting for my big check. So she will wait a little bit. Like, if it's a late fee, then I got to pay the late fee, whatever. But they usually don't file or tell me, like, not to worry about it. So at this point, when I get my late notice, so I'm like, okay, here go the late notice. I'm about to get it. Let me call, let me let her know, like, hey, I still didn't get the check. So I think at this time I find out that like income tax is not coming for a while, right? I couldn't file. I think once I did file, I realized that like we had to wait 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm like, okay, I'm not getting that stuff till March. And then she, like, on the paper, I'm like, wait, whoa, why do I owe all this? I only owe for 1 month and then a late fee or something. And she's like, oh, no, you owe from November. I'm like, November? So come to find out, I must have did my calculations wrong, thinking I was, saved up, paid up until December. I wasn't paid up until November. So, and then, like, I really don't believe I messed up. I believe that They messed up, but like the way that the thing is, like you just put money into the bank, like how, like who's to say? Like it's like, oh no, you paid it on this date, yeah, but when I paid it on this date, it was for, you know what I mean? Like there's no way to say this. It was for October, November, December, September, October, November, December, right? When I paid it on this date, because it doesn't say what the balance was at that date or what was it at. So when I paid it, it's just like, oh, you just paid this and you know, you owed this. It just didn't have that. And I was like, and that's why I don't like how it's set up. I feel like this apartment's set up kind of same. I'm just like, can you give me something that says I'm paid up for my rent for 6 months? Because I know how much the rent is. I'm putting rent in, and you took like, and if I'm counting for everything, then I should be like, why is it that much more? And I couldn't, like, there was no way for me to decipher, like, if they were telling the truth or not. And it just really, really bugged me because I'm like, I don't really believe I miscounted. Like, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have, like, how, like, 5 times 15, like, anyway. I had a choice whether to, like, apply for rental assistance, you know, get a job, wait and pay all that money, or like get evicted. And the time, like, I didn't get, well, I got evicted. Like, eviction definitely probably was, I don't think it went on my record at the time because they had a security deposit, and something I was just like, look, if I leave at this time, then I only owe it for 2 months, and my security deposit is X, Y, and Z, so that can cover that. And then, like, let's just be done. I'll go. I feel like it was something like that, but my mom was like, just why don't you move back home? So I was like, well, let me move back home because then I can, if I move back before this time, then that can happen. And I don't have an eviction on my belt because when I was younger, I did have one, and I was scarred, and I was like, I'm not trying to go back there because ADHD, y'all, that's another story. But I used to just have so many I call it ADHD texts, where like, because you didn't know something, do something, procrastinate on something, all this other stuff happens and builds up, and then it's overwhelming. You don't deal with it, and you didn't know how to deal with it, and then then your life just spirals out of control. I had so many different chapters of that in my life, so many different spurts of that, and didn't realize why. I just really internalized it to I'm a fuck up. I'm messed up. Like, I just can't get right, and there's nothing I could do about it. Like that. Like, that's how I was feeling, but I never really said that. I don't know if I ever really projected that or showed that to other people. Like, I think like my friends and family would probably say I'm super confident. Like, I think they probably think I'm the most confident in the world, but when it came to like adulting, and like now I'm getting older, so I feel like as I'm getting older, more and more of the, because I feel like when I was in my 20s, 21, everybody's like, oh, you're young, you'll get, like, every time I would be like, I didn't do this, they like, you're young, you got time. But ain't nobody saying that shit to me no more. Like, I feel like I'm not hearing like, you're young. Now I feel like I'm getting older, so I feel like the older I was getting at the time, my chest is tightening more and more because it's like less and less acceptable for me to be making these mistakes. Like, this is a big mistake. The last time I made a mistake like that, my mom, like, what are you doing? Like, how could you get evicted? Like, well, like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you pay? Like, you know, so all of that is building up, and now I've learned that it was my response to dealing with things. I don't think I ever had confidence that, like, when something goes bad, you know, us, sounds like, you know, but like, if you have ADHD, when you learn about how, like, your black and white thinking or how you deal with things, I would make it worse. You know, like, I didn't like my boss. I could have dealt with that situation. I didn't need to quit my job, or if I quit, like, you set yourself up and make sure you're gonna be okay. Like, I knew I was going, like, what, like, I just didn't think all of that through. It wasn't like I didn't purposely make a bad decision. Like, F it. I was like, I'll go back to school and I can make this money, and I'll just hurry up and I'm making my focus doing this. Then I realized, like, oh yeah, I really can't because I'm at my limit. So that just, like, messed up everything. You know what I mean? And then the fact, like, I made that mistake on the rent, and now I really asked out because like it always seemed like in my life, like, it happens in threes. Like, that one little thing, and it shouldn't be everything shouldn't be based on that one little thing. But now, because I had therapy and everything, I realized, like, that, like, the way I thought about a lot of stuff, it would be like, if my car had something wrong with it, I'd be like, nope, car's done, throw it out. Like, I'm just done, I'm just dead, I can't go to work, it's over, and I ain't got no job, I ain't got no apartment. Like, I ain't going, like, instead of being like, Brittany, even like, if it's like $1,000 to fix, you gotta figure out how to get that $1,000, you gotta do this or find another alternative if you're gonna take. Like, I'm just like, oh, that's it. You know, it was like, and then that would be start a trickle effect. I didn't see that before. So like just small curious things of not handling things and just, getting really, really down on myself when something would happen, like a car purchase or something. I never saved up money, so I would never have any money in the bank. So if a $200, $300, thing that you fix on a car that wasn't accounted for, I just put all my money on my rent or whatever, or when it happened, it was really like upsetting to me. I was pissed because like, dang, this was my whole checker. This was like, I wasn't accounting for this $400 freaking repair on this car. And you would think I would, because I have a used car, right? But at the time, like, I just, all those small mistakes molded me for who I am now, for this person I am now. So fast forward back to today. Back, and when I say today, I mean in this in this past 2-3 years, I got offered a job from the training employment center and up here where I work at now. And she called me and she was like, hey, my boss, they moved to a different location, which was like right down the street from where they were before. And they were like, email this person, put your application in. So I ended up getting hired out of there. It actually was in a different program than that program, but it was to do the same thing, sort of, kind of. No, it wasn't. It was a shit show. It was a shit show, guys. Dag. I wanted to talk about from this point on. And that's how my ADHD journey started. But I gave y'all all the past history, and now we done talked way too long, and this story is getting way too long to go further. Maybe I should do a part 2. Yeah, that's what I'll do. If you guys liked it, then I'll know, because you guys would be asking for a part 2 for life after the tragedies, and how I end up getting to, yeah. So now we're in the past 2 years now, and that's how I became on my ADHD journey. That job that I got was my first big girl job. I actually got hired to be a case manager before I completed my bachelor's. Remember COVID put a pause in it, so I actually was hired before I got my bachelor's, and everything was going good in the beginning. I got my own office. I'm working on the other side of this. Y'all, I've been on welfare, right? I've been on welfare. I've been on food stamps. I've had case managers. So funny to go in to this place, right? And to be reading my case notes from a case manager, right? And now I'm the case manager. Like, that's just so crazy to me. And it was so exciting. Like, I'm talking to girls that's like my age. I feel like me. Like, it just feels weird for me to like be case managing somebody that's a me. It's just like, it was so exciting in the beginning. It went downhill from there. Some of it started with me, like myself, my insecurities, and like things I had to work on. I noticed I started to have attention issues. I really was scared of being late to this job, getting in trouble, because that's one thing, I'm consistently late, right? I was really, really scared of that. I was really scared of getting fired. I started to get overwhelmed, and I started to like feel the burnout. And case management is a high burnout position, right? Job. And I didn't really know that at the time too, but so I started to reach out to I started to, speaking to my doctor and be like, hey, I remember I had ADD when I was younger. I was on Ritalin or whatever. I feel like I need to talk to somebody. I feel like my concentration, I started to feel like I wasn't, that's what I kept relating it to. Like, oh, I'm not really concentrating. Sometimes like I just, and then I started to learn the words for it, like time management. I needed time management skills, and, like object permanence, and started, learning about my executive functions, and, why I procrastinate and things like that. And now it opened up a whole world and a whole door of awareness, with a whole lot of ups and downs, a whole lot of bitter and a whole lot of sweet, which brought me to where I'm at today. So if you guys want to hear part 2, please like, share, and comment part 2 down below. I think, yeah, I've been talking for a long time. I think I might have to cut a lot of things out, because an hour and 15 minutes, like, you guys do not want to hear an hour and 15 minutes. Like, how could y'all want to hear an hour and 15 minutes? video. So yeah, I'm going to explain more of what I was going through and what I've learned once getting my ADHD and everything I had to go through, because that was a whole up and down, like trying to get diagnosed, trying to get medicated, like whew, especially, and then still being low income at the time. The types of things I was doing, the types of things I was struggling with. If you guys want to hear things like that, I'll explain that, and then what I've learned and what I'm doing now and how that impacted me and why that's changing where I want to go with my channel and why that's changing what I want to talk about and what I want to do. I just learned so much about myself, about who I am now, who I want to be, who I was, and I want to share that new enlightenment in my work, like in my content. I was holding on to something that's not really me, and I really want to speak about that. If you guys are interested to hear and see how I feel now about my content just being for big girls, like how I feel about, before I think it was all about like plus size clothing hauls and, like dressing for your body and your size and things like that, and why I'm still a big girl. So while I still want to talk about that, that is not going to be the sole creation of my channel. If you want to hear more about my thoughts, where I'm trying to go with it and why, and the rest of my story, please comment down below, hit a like and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video.